Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Jenna Loves Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Hope I said that right. I think I'm getting better at it, anyways. I look forward to your corrections if I did not. I want to talk today about how the pillars of Islam are very important to me as a new revert, as any Muslim should have. but in particular, because I grew up in the Western world, how I see them. So, without further ado, Bismillah. I want Allah's blessing on everything I have to do and say. And obviously, we all start off with a Shahada, a declaration of faith. I've always had faith, so that was the easy part. Our daily prayers is a way to completely stay focused on what that Shahada meant. Really, it makes you refocus yourself 5 times a day on your priorities, that God is watching over you and everything you do should be related to Him, and knowing that everything you have is a gift from Him. When I look at Western society, it seems that they really want to replace government where God once was the focal point. Any problems in society, well, we're just going to fix it. We're going to legislate this. We're going to legislate that. They bring in new rules. And what I really like about the Occidental countries is the fact that they look to the tenets of the faith in order to decide what becomes law and what is just. And that, I think, is so much simpler to live by, so much less complicated, and it's the way to go. So anyways, the big thing that I find with going on from there, I mean, the government, you have these problems, and you say we can have it all in the Western world. You can have it all. You can do it all. And then they show us all these things to measure ourselves against, so that people are envious and jealous of the next person and always worried that somebody has more than they do. Whereas in Islam, we have zakat, which is saying that the more that you have, the more you have to share and the more you have to give back, which I think is an awesome way to support the community. And it also goes back to recognizing that everything you have is because of God's grace. And when people do that because they're doing it out of the goodness of their blessings and because they were blessed by God with these things, then that blessing grows. It's like nurturing a garden. It just grows and develops. Whereas when you put it into the context of government, well, the government takes their chunk first, and the way governments are run today by all these corrupt officials, very little of it actually gets to the people who actually need it. To the full reason that you had for giving your money in the first place was to help out somebody, but he doesn't get it. Whereas with zakat, it pretty much goes directly to the sources that need it, which makes it so much more valuable, so much more wonderful in that regard. We're also supposed to fast, and fasting is something that the Western world would seem rather silly. But what I've come to understand is that we value things that we've had to work for. And we have this huge problem right now with obesity, because food is one of the basic needs that humans have. And people are complacent because they can stuff their face. So where in the Western world, they may think that, oh, I've got the freedom to go to the store and buy what I want, get what I want. And it's not always the case. I mean, there's so much stuff out here with sugar in it that we don't need. I cook for myself, so it's a little frustrating sometimes when there's anything that's pre-made, it has sugar in it, sauces or whatnot, and then finding raw spices and things like that are really difficult sometimes. And then you have homeowners associations, so you can't grow gardens, so you can't have your own spices. It's just crazy thing that I really would like to get away from, but that's a whole nother story. I'm going off on a tangent. Anyways, we are always looking to have this perfect life. Perfection doesn't exist. Fasting is there to remind you that your needs are being met. It's to refocus you on something else. Your prayers are so much more in earnest when your stomach is growling. It's like you're going through the day and you're like, that little bit of suffering is what allows you to really, really focus on what's important in life. Because when people get things easy, they take them for granted over and over and over again. I see people waste away things. I've been in very socialist run Western nations, and the amount of stuff that gets thrown out and that other people end up scavenging and making their living off of is just absolutely mind-boggling. Whereas, this stuff should be given to those people who actually need it if you don't want it anymore. And better yet, you shouldn't be hyper-consumer, like everything. Your basic needs, humans' basic needs are shelter, food, and water, and companionship. And that's the other thing we have in the Western world, where companionship is basically we're free to go out and have sex. And that's not real companionship. Companionship is best friends and life partners and people that you can count on, family. And the family is torn down in the Western world everywhere we turn. Whereas the Muslim cultures, the family is still very much embraced and valued, and across the generations. There's a lot of arranged marriages because people respect what their elders think of. We used to have it here back in the 50s where, a man would still go to the father and ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. It wasn't that far from what we see in the Occidental nations, but today that's completely been eroded by this feminist ideal that women can have it all and don't even need any men, and then they go and they get themselves implanted from a donor semen, and a couple of lesbians are having kids now, and it's completely different from how nature was set up, how God put the rules of nature there for us to live by. Now, I'm the first one not to be against the use of in vitro fertilization, but I like the way the Muslims have accepted this, that the doctor's taking your actual eggs, your husband's actual semen, and helping things along, and nobody else is involved. And if it's to be, then it'll be, but you're not messing with anything that God didn't intend, and it still might not take. So if you're not meant to have children this way, then you won't. But then we've got polygyny, so you can still have children within your family, and you go from being this partnership to this team where you can have a lot of kids with several different wives in one household, and that is still carrying on of the family values, the values of Islam, the values of life that I think the respect for everybody in your family and putting God at the top of all of that, which is the most important, the most beautiful thing about Islam. And so I am probably going to need that in vitro fertilization, so I'm looking to set up a lot of different things to get that on the go. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars to go down that road. And I have an eBay store right now. I'll put the link below if you want to try to support me. Whatever profits I get from that will go into it. But I don't expect a lot because it's not very profitable business once eBay takes its cut and I pay for the things that I'm putting up on there. And yeah, a little bit at a time. So bear with me. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. I guess it wasn't very long, but I'll try to come up with something else for next time and hopefully keep you just as interested with my mispronunciation of all the words that I can think of. I'm wishing you a very wonderful time, and may Allah increase your blessings. Bye-bye.